Okay.
Heather, thank you for being here with us today.
No problem. Thank you for having me.
Of course. So tell us a little bit about yourself, the rundown of who you are, what you work in, and what you write about.
So I have a small business called Sales Boxer, and we do social media, email marketing, anything marketing for small businesses throughout the United States.
Awesome.
And everything I've wrote about has been about marketing, whether it's business or nonprofits.
That's cool. That's cool. Do you focus on mostly like brick and mortar businesses or online entrepreneurs, or where's your
We
niche in
have
there?
both.
Okay.
We've worked with tons of brick and mortars and a lot of online, especially since the pandemic.
Yeah. I think everyone's been becoming an online
Yeah.
business owner since the pandemic. So, thinking about your writing journey with all the work that you've done with writing and publishing so far, especially with that first book, that first time you're going through this process, what sort of struggles did you run into that maybe were hurdles in getting started or finishing that manuscript?
Well, luckily, I wrote with two other women who worked with Sales Boxer for me. So that made the process a little bit easier. But as far as me, myself, it was sticking to that deadlines. You know that deadline's coming up and you're just having this creative block. And you're like, oh, I know what I'm writing about. I'm just not sure how to get it all the way where I want it to be.
Mm-hmm,
That was
mm-hmm.
one of the biggest struggles.
Yeah. How did you work through that? Any mindsets or strategies that really helped?
What I would do is I had a set time every day that I would work on that, and that was it. If I had a block, I would go do something else. I have had so many ideas just taking the dog for a walk to get away from it for a minute. And
Mm-hmm.
so that's what I always tell people. If you're hitting a writer's block, step back for 20, 30 minutes and you will be surprised how much better it will be when you go back.
Mm-hmm. I want to touch on that co-authoring process a little bit because you're the first person I've spoken to that has done that. How was that different, better, worse than writing a book on your own?
I think it ran really good with all of us. We had all worked together. So what we did is that all of us have strong suits. We all don't know it all. So we divided the entire book up. Your strong suit's here, this one's here. This is what you're going to cover. And then we would combine everything together. And as a group, we went through and edited. We made comments on each other's work. And that really helped make the process faster because you're
Mhm.
not, I mean, even though it's nonfiction, there still takes a little bit of creativity to make that interesting for someone to read. And
Mhm.
having them others on board is really what helped. We were create off of each other. That's what I like to tell people is that that's how we done it.
Yeah, it's nice. It's almost like having a peer review group with a teammate
Yes.
with a book at the same time. That's a nice
Right, because all
combination.
three of us are in the same thing. So, I mean, it's like, well, did we forget about this? Oh, that's a good point. I completely forgot about that. And those are the kind
Mhm.
of ways that we made it stand out.
Yeah. For the voice of the book, did you try to all make your writing sound kind of like each other's, or was it very distinctive? Oh, this is Heather. This is,
You can
co-author.
tell, I think, because I don't care who you are. There's no way everyone writes the same.
Mhm.
We did know that we wanted to speak to the audience as though we were talking to them. We didn't want to get so technical speaking that your average person couldn't understand what we were saying.
Mhm.
And that's what made our books kind of stand out was the fact that it was written like I'm just talking to you.
Mhm. Mhm. With the outlining process, did you have any sort of strategies that really made coming up with the content and ordering the content a lot easier?
We went through and decided, okay, well, we definitely want a chapter devoted to this. We want this devoted to that. And then as a group, we would each take it and say, okay, I definitely think this idea, a subtitle below that chapter title. And we kind of outlined everything like that. And it made the writing process a whole lot easier because we knew exactly what we needed to write about at that moment.
Mhm. Mhm. Switching directions a little bit, did you ever, or maybe some of your co-authors, did you guys ever struggle with anything like imposter syndrome or perfectionism or some of those mindset blocks that a lot of aspiring authors struggle with?
I can't speak for them, but I know I myself did. I every time I would read the chapter I just wrote, I'm like, no, it's not good enough. It's not good enough. And I think that is something that every writer thinks. But at one point, you just get to the point like, I can't do no more. It has to be good. And luckily, I was able to take my chapters, and my poor husband had to listen to them. And he is not in marketing, but he would read them, and I would be like, well, what do you think? And he would say, it's perfect. And I'm be like, but I still had that sense of self-doubt that it's not perfect.
Mhm.
But I
Mhm.
think everyone suffers with that.
Yeah, absolutely. Were there any sort of shifts or moments of clarity that really helped you say, okay, it's good enough, and really start to put it out there?
When we got completely finished and almost all of us took a turn reading it, and this is one of the little things that I do that may sound a little odd, I never read it in order. I start from the back and go
Okay.
backwards. The reason I do that is because then it's read it in a different order than what it was wrote in. And for me, then I'm not automatically thinking, well, this is coming up because I'm reading it backwards. So that really, once I got through it like that, I'm like, okay, I know we touched on this, we touched on that. I think it's good to go.
Mm, that's a really interesting tip. And kind of branching off of that, did you write it in order or did you write kind of all over the place as well?
I started kind of all over the place because it was like I had chapter like 2 and 5 and 7. If I felt like, you know what, I don't want to focus on writing about Facebook marketing today, I'd rather go to talking about graphic design. Then whatever I was feeling, that's what I started writing about. And I know that's not the best way to write, but that's how I do because I have to be in that creative mode to do it.
Mhm, mhm. It's funny you say that because I know a lot of aspiring authors, including myself when I wrote my first book, are like, "Oh my gosh, it has to be in order. We have to write chapter 1, then chapter 2, then chapter 3." But almost every person I've interviewed in this series has said, "Yeah, I wrote it out of order and I started
Oh
over
yeah.
here," and stuff like that. So I think it can make it easier because you can go where the passion is at that day.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, Heather, this has been an amazing conversation. Do you have anything else you'd like to share with someone who's approaching the process of writing their first book?
Honestly, if I had to tell any aspiring author, just don't give up. Because I mean, before I got my nonfiction published, I had a fiction I was working on. And to this day, I still have not found a publisher for it, but that's okay. It may not happen ever, but it just enjoy the process of writing. And
Mhm,
that's
mhm.
really what I like. It's the process of writing something. And if it helps one person, then I did my job.
Absolutely. No, it's a powerful message to end on. Heather, thank you so much for sharing your expertise with us.
Thank you.